Thank you, Engineer Dr. Robin Osborne. I want to express my appreciation to the presenters during this session who, on short notice, all agreed and cooperated in compressing their presentations. I just had to crack the whip a couple times, but it's 12:44 by my watch here. I think we will entertain a couple questions and we'll probably go for lunch, depending on the questions, at about 1 o'clock. So I'll give you you'll get a half an hour for lunch today, just to bring the schedule back to what it was. So, without further ado, I'll entertain the questions.
Thank you. Tyrone Sutherland from the Caribbean Meteorological Organization. As a meteorologist, I've always, this is for Dr. Osborne, I've always been very impressed around the world with concrete roads. I've always looked at the impact of rainfall on concrete and honestly been impressed. However, I would really love the engineers in here to look at what happened in St. Lucia in December. The international airport in Vieux is a former US military base, heavy concrete taxiways that are used as roads, built before World War II. And this is what happened. It collapsed. The concrete here on my computer right now. And honestly, I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked, and I would love engineers in here like yourself to investigate what really happened here. Thank you.
Ion? Yeah. My response to that is because I happen to know the V4 area personally, and some of my own undergraduate research, and then 20 years later, I came in as a CDB consultant to the government of St. Lucia. I'm quite intimately aware of some of the soil conditions around there. As far as I remember, as is in St. Kitts, where I was also special engineering advisor to the Prime Minister's office after Louis and Marilyn passed. They didn't hit, but they passed, and they did extensive damage due to water. If we have loose granular soils that are uncemented, the best pavement system in the world, if all its support is washed away, it's going to collapse. So I think I'm speaking without knowledge of the specifics, but I would guess that that is very likely a possible contributor to catastrophic localized collapse in the system without the benefit of having seen photographs. I've seen a video, but it was only a helicopter overfly by Nemo of St. Lucia, so it only gives very general visual information. I saw some of the failures, but no details could be discerned at that photographic range. So I am glad of your invitation for engineers to investigate. We tried to get meaningful information out of St. Lucia and St. Vincent to put into the paper, but authorities are so stressed with the imperatives of recovery that we could not get any meaningful information at a decent level to present to an engineers conference like this.
Thank you. Dr. Chen?
Myron Chen, Civil Structural Engineer. This is a question directed to Engineer Ray Falong. In his presentation, he had mentioned Emily. I happened to be the pro tem director NEMA at the time. And following that traffic chaos, the Ministry of Works appointed a committee to look at developing an egress plan for Port of Spain. It was chaired by the then engineer Roger Israel, who I think is now a deputy PS at Ministry of Works. We met on many occasions, we developed a plan, and I would like to know if you've had access to this and if it is possible to look at the pros and cons of what we had developed.
Yes, I did look at I got those points. They were all put in a sort of a table, and they were, I would like to suggest general guidelines of how to go forward. They wouldn't, you call it a plan, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a plan. I would suggest that it probably would be better to call them the components of that table inputs towards a plan.
Okay, anyone else? I guess we all Ready for lunch? Oh, okay. There's Engineer Fazir Mohammed. Could we, Fazir Khan, sorry.
This is for Dr. Osborne. First of all, thanks. I felt I was many years back in university, listening to one of your lectures. I get that, and it's reinforced, no pun intended, that there are applications for concrete roads, steep slopes, high velocity water, and I think we really need to be making those considerations very early into our conceptual designs, etc. I do want to ask the question, in general terms, because we are a small island state with limited right-of-ways, and that will continue to be so over the years. And we tend to put everything within those right-of-ways and under the roads. And there is the example of having a line installed and then having to go back in and cut it, which brings significant maintenance costs as well. So there should be some consideration and revision to any statement that says that concrete roads require less maintenance. But in a holistic manner, when one has to go back in and cut a concrete road and repair it, we all understand how expensive that can be, even though we have the technical competency to do it properly. And I really would like to know that is a consideration in the final paper.
Yes, engineer. Those have been considered in more detail, but let us not mix fish and chicken with deep respect to any vegetarians. When what we see is not repair of a concrete road, is repair of utilities that have been badly planned. Coming back from the US, getting reacclimatized to driving in Trinidad, on the other side of the road too. There's so much badly repaired asphalt that because it long-term deforms by creep, it kind of seals over. But what we're looking at is a bigger problem, a non-coordination of utilities. When Boston had to put in an underground late in the history of the city, they went for a no-dig approach. So you went in here and everything else was tunneling. Engineer Cecil Chin, who contributed to some of the intelligence that I have used in the paper, I understand, this is talk on the street, that a job he was associated with had to lay something across the highway. And the highway authority said, no way, you ain't cutting this road. And they put up a reaction platform and they jacked the service under the road. The traffic continued. So jacking, tunneling, lateral boring, there are all kinds of stuff available. Many years ago, TSTT promised no more digging in Port of Spain. So what they did is put down lean concrete, multiple corridors, so all you have to do is borrow from the electrician and fish the new fiber optics or copper through in the future. If we can plan pre-sleeving, if we can plan parallel utilities corridors, I'm not a tongue planner. Look the kind of fellas who have the competence to say. I'm like a bush doctor. If we can take that kind of multi-professional approach, because our cities, our urbanized areas are becoming increasingly complex. And if we do not have proper interdisciplinary collaboration and co-consultation, we are going to, excuse my bad English, bounce our head over and over again. When a line becomes a piece of hard architecture, when a line becomes a canal, a road, a structure, it's no longer adjustable on a computer screen or piece of paper. When planning becomes built, the mistakes become semi-permanent. And it's one of the things that is critical for us, not only in the conceiving, planning, and preparing for events which could become disasters if we haven't done the proper planning, we also have to look at unnecessary disruptions to road and other systems because we haven't planned the parallel corridors and spatial requirements for services and critical utilities.
Thank you. Any other questions? None? Any? Okay, I see Engineer Hannah Wimudin. Look. Yeah.
Thank you. My question is directed to Dr. Osborne. Could you elaborate on the role pervious concrete can play in mitigating stormwater damage?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm not an expert on the area, but when you live in Florida, Florida has no hills except some undulations in the northwest of the state, in the Panhandle. Everything is almost flat. So control of stormwater is critical. Pervious concrete is, if to those of us who are more connected with vertical concrete, like a no fines concrete, a concrete with no sand or very little sand. Of course, your water cement ratios have to be critically controlled. And may I digress a little with Chairman's permission, just to say that one of the problems with concrete is that it requires tighter discipline, construction discipline and planning. So some people try to shy away from it because some of the other materials may be less strict and more forgiving. But back to your question. We're basically making a concrete without a fine phase. So water can run through it. It's used in a lot of areas like underneath car parks, so that we can get aquifer recharge. We can go into retention ponds. Florida is full of retention ponds. Our two boys are both civil engineers, and one is a certified professional in drainage and erosion control. And he works in San Diego. And he's on one side, the other one's on the other side. He's a highway design engineer. Critical to all of these developments, you have to account for water that falls on the site, or approved water that may come into the site from an adjacent development. And pervious concrete under your car park, for example, can not only provide passage without scour or piping, but also can provide temporary underground storage for suppression of hydrographic peaks when you look at the total hydrographic flow system. Am I making sense? Or am I too confusing? But it's one of those things that you can achieve with concrete. Eh? Yeah, well, I only use car parks as an example. Again, I'm truncating all the time because I'm very conscious of time. But
Okay.
we can talk after.
Thank you very much and have a good lunch.